If you could just say and spell your name.
I'm Byron Tucker, Byron Tucker.
And today we're with Byron Tucker, and we're in Nicholas County, West Virginia, and on his private property. And we like to keep people's property private, but he has found some amazing artifacts in and around Nicholas County on his property. And today we're hoping to get out and do a little bit of searching. But before we do that, I wanted to let Byron take a minute, number one, and introduce himself, and then show you some of these artifacts. But the first one I'm going to grab is this cannonball.
Yep.
And I want you to tell them about, the story about this cannonball right here.
It was in October of the year when I found this cannonball, and the signal actually rang up. I believed I had found a gun barrel, and it was down about 16 or 18 inches, and the cannonball was upside down. All I could see was the smooth bottom of it, and I dug it up, and I didn't know how the timers worked. I couldn't remember, and all at once I heard something start ticking, and I thought, well, that was a spring-loaded timer, and I was afraid I'd just set something up to explode.
Right.
And I waited a little while and found out and realized it was a leaf that the wind was blowing, and it just happened to be hitting my shovel just right to make a ticking sound. But then I dug further and saw that it had the timer intact. Well, then I absolutely knew that the cannonball had not exploded, and didn't know for sure how to handle it. So I brought it in and left it outside, because if it was explosive, I didn't want to blow my house up, and called an acquaintance of mine in Alabama, and he told me to keep it in a bucket of water to keep it wet in case it did activate. And then I located someone in Richmond, Virginia that made arrangements to get a hole drilled in it to dump the black powder out of it. And the gentleman used, from what I was told, the way he done it, he has a remote controlled drill press that he has a video camera on it and has water blowing onto it all the time, and he controls that drill press to drill a hole in it, and the water keeps the powder from getting hot and exploding. And he told me that after he dumped it out, that he burnt the black powder. He said it was still dry enough to burn.
Wow.
Since then, and this battle where this was found was on September the 10th, 1861.
Wow.
So it's been several years.
So the point that we make with this is that any kind of ordnance can be dangerous if you don't handle it properly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that is an awesome find. That is, and it's heavy, folks. I'm telling you. You can see the timer on there, and you've just found some other and amazing artifacts. Now this bayonet, I wanted you to kind of talk about it, but also talk about the tip that you accidentally broke.
Well, I got the signal, and of course it showed, made me believe that it was possibly a rifle barrel with a long, narrow signal this way. And as I was digging it, there was a small root under it, and I broke the end of it off accidentally. And with my research from where it was found there. It should have been Union. There was only Union soldiers in the area. There's no reports that there was ever any Confederate soldiers in that area. So I feel sure that it was a Union bayonet. And what I preserved part of it, I put it in electrolysis to clean a little bit. Then I put a product called Gimpler's Rust Converter on part of it. That's the black. And I left part of it without it for a comparison, and partly for my own knowledge, to watch and see some deterioration, to see how long it would last, see what would happen with it.
Sure. And how long have you had this out of the ground?
3 years probably.
3 years. That's an amazing find. And then you've got all sorts of other things. You've got a cannonball fragment over there. We've got bullets. Some of these are my favorite bullets to find, actually. It's these big,
Oh, yeah.
I call these the big honking 69 calibers, And, that was the early war version. And then, of course, the Irish Regiment, which I have a lot of family members that were in, they continued to use that 69 caliber smoothbore with the buck and ball round. They
Yeah.
really liked using the buck and ball round. And there you go. You go.
In this container,
Wow,
there's a lot of the buckshot in there.
that's amazing. And so all of this stuff from these battles occurred around 1861 in this area. Now I'm sure you had some occupation troops here.
Right. They passed through this area quite a bit for 2 or 3 more years. This Carnifex Ferry was a major crossroads as they were traveling in this area, and Summersville was a central location.
Now this is a rifle tool, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
That's-
and
that's-
best I could research, it's probably a Springfield rifle tool.
And that's just amazing that you find, and some of these tools and things that you find. So that's connected. So what is that?
That would have been a door latch. It's probably not war related, but it would have had a hasp right
That is
in
so
there,
cool.
and swung
Somebody
it over.
made
Then
that.
yeah, that was made by a blacksmith, I'm sure, in a shop.
And then, we actually, so you've probably found just loads and loads of bullets like the rest of us have found. And so what would be your coolest find that you've ever found? What you would call your I'm sure the cannonball ranks up there with that.
Yeah, the cannonball is pretty high. The bayonet was I was pretty happy with the bayonet
Guarantee it.
because that, I think, is uncommon for someone to lose a bayonet. That was a pretty major tool for a soldier, and that somebody was really in a bad situation once they realized they lost that.
And you're a veteran too.
Yep,
You were in the
Navy.
Navy. Tell us a little bit about your service.
It was just short term. I was at Great Lakes, Illinois for about 4 months, and was medically discharged with ulcers, bleeding
Okay.
ulcers.
I'll be darned. But then I noticed that you have a long line of family members. Your son, retired
Yep.
Marine.
Our older son's a retired Marine, and what he's talking about, we have a display of pictures of our family that has served in the military, and my dad, grandparents, for several generations back. And a real interesting part of that, one of the pictures up there, my wife's grandparents came from Russia in 1910, and before he became a United States citizen, he fought in the Argonne Forest in World War I, and he wasn't even a United States citizen yet. And
Wow.
we've got a handwritten will of his, and for the address he put that he was located somewhere in the Argonne Forest with the U.S. Expeditionary Forces, and it to me is pretty important. This man wasn't even a citizen of this country and
Fighting for
fought
it.
for us.
Yeah, it kind of is goes into play with when I studied my family history. Most of them were all mainly Irish that came over, immigrants that came over, and in the Civil War there were 5 brothers, and 4 of them fought for the Union, and 1 moved to Virginia, and he was pressed into service. Said pressed into service under the gun, which meant he was made to go. He was wounded at Cloyd's Mountain, and but we have one of the brothers is a Medal of Honor recipient, was in the Navy. On the USS Signal, and then the others fought in the New York Irish Brigade. They just and fought in some of the most horrific battles of the Civil War, and lived to tell it. So that's an interesting time in our period. Now you found something else there.
This was an interesting find. There's a bullet in this piece of wood. So this tree would have been standing during the day of the battle, and so the tree grew and finally fell down, and to find a bullet in the piece of wood, that was just an interesting find.
Yeah.
It's uncommon, I think, and it was just an
Very
interesting
uncommon.
find.
Very uncommon. Well, so we're going to get to digging, folks, and we're going to shoot some video from the field, and hopefully we'll find some more cool things today out here with Byron. So
Good.
keep watching.